Do you like Bourbon Street? What about beignets? Well, if you love either of those things, then I think you would love the French Quarter. The French Quarter was established by the French in 1788. Today I'm going to tell you about the 1800s, 1900s, and the 2000s, or today, of the French Quarter. First, let me explain a little bit about the French Quarter. The French Quarter is the most recognizable half square mile of the United States. The French Quarter is the oldest area of New Orleans, Louisiana, and it is known as the Vieux Carré. The French Quarter is bound by Rampart Street, Esplanade Avenue, Canal Street, and the Mississippi River. The French Quarter is well known for entertainment, famous restaurants, and hotels. The French Quarter was started in the 1800s, originally by the French in 1788, but a fire burned it down. So the French Quarter that we know today was built in the 1800s. When they were rebuilding the French Quarter, they used Spanish regulation, which gives the building the Spanish look that you see today. In 1803, America bought Louisiana, and Americans began to rush into Louisiana, which crowded the French Quarter. In 1830, there was peak prosperity in the French Quarter thanks to cotton and sugar, and it became the fastest growing city in America. Bourbon Street was actually not named after the drink, but by the French ruling family of the 18th century. In 1840, the French Quarter started to fall downhill after America won the French rivalry. Also, it began to decline because of yellow fever in 1850 and the Civil War in 1860. In 1860, we see railroads, warehouse, and industries pop up on the riverfront. We also see a house style start to form, the American townhouse style, which included indoor staircases and hallways. I got this information from FrenchQuarterCitizens.org. Now, in 1900s, the world is going through World War II, and the French Quarter fell onto hard times. Some of the most elegant buildings became slums, and they were home to the poorest immigrants. In the 1800s, there was a battle between developers and preservationists. In 1950, developers wanted to demolish old buildings and build an expressway along the river. This plan was defeated after 10 years, but buildings were torn down elsewhere in the French Quarter. And bringing it back to 1910 and 20s, there was a demand to protect the French Quarter, so preservationists obtained a National Historic Landmark, which would preserve some of the older buildings with historic value. In the 1900s, we see hotels begin to rise, which were attracting tourists and bringing a lot of tourists to the city. But in 1970, there was a city ordinance to halt the building of new hotels and expansion onto old ones, which preserved some of the historicness of the city. And I received this information from TripSavvy.com. Today, the French Quarter is known for its nightlife. The original French, Italian, and Sicilian families have all left the French Quarter due to rising rent rates and high real estate costs. This leaves the preservationists to admire the beauty and the historicness of the city, and the preservationists are really the only ones left. In the early 2000s, the Tango Belt was a very popular place to go visit, and it had an array of dance halls, honky-tonks, restaurants, and theaters. But now, the most popular place to visit is Bourbon Street. It has become a nightlife hotspot and one of the most popular tourist attractions in the French Quarter. And I got this information from FQMD.org. In conclusion, I hope you all enjoyed my speech today on the French Quarter. We took a look through the 1800s, which was the start of the French Quarter. Then we looked through the 1900s, where we saw new growth and resistance for change. And then today in the 2000s, we see the French Quarter we know and love, which is known for its nightlife. It is amazing how much history is in this little patch of the city, and the French Quarter is the nation's most significant concentration of old historic buildings in America. I hope you all learned something new about the French Quarter that you did not already know today. If you have not been to the French Quarter, I recommend seeing. It is very beautiful, historic, and it has great food. Thank you all for listening.